that way we're good to go. Hey, welcome everyone. And I'm glad you're here today to focus on building a $1 million database. I'm Steve Schlueter, just a little bit about Steve so you know who you're hanging out with today. Gosh, 30 plus year veteran of the real estate industry. Started my real estate career at 23 years old and became one of the top 20 RE/MAX agents in the state of Texas before starting a leadership career with Keller Williams in 1998 as a team leader, where Gary Keller had the privilege of having Gary Keller as my OP as we led the Northwest Market Center in Austin to being ranked at Real Trends at that time as the number 4 real estate office in transactions in the country. So productivity is my jam. I look forward to working with you today. Today, I'm a part of the Keller Williams University Master Faculty. Bold coach. I'm an operating principal and multi-market center owner. And most importantly, the co-coach with Tammi Juengst in a program called Never Ending Referrals. And today we're going to give you some perspective on building $1 million database from our program, Never Ending Referrals today. And we're going to take you through 3 steps that really are fundamental and easy for you to implement to begin that path. And it really doesn't matter where you are today. We're going to give you the framework that if you'll just stay on this path and, and I work towards this target, that I have the makings of doing this. Now, I don't know where you are today. Your database could be a train wreck. You're not alone. Many of them are. And this is a simple process where you begin, with simple steps to start moving in a direction. And yet today you're going to see what the potential is and what some of the key fundamentals are in building a database that works, in building a relationship-based business. And I'll tell you, one of the things I'm so passionate about, Tammi and I, with this program, Never Ending Referrals, is that our desire and hope for you is that you wake up on January 1, after you've had all the football you can take, and you're starting a new year, and let's just say it's 2025, and you begin to apply what we're talking about today. And in 2025, you've put things in place, and you wake up on January 1, and where your first 36, 70, 150 transactions are coming from because you've built a business this way. And this is the essence of truly building a smart business. Where you have relationships, you have customers, and you have a meaningful relationship with them. So we're going to go right to work today. And thanks for being with us. Again, I'm flying solo. I do have our operations manager for Never Ending Referrals, Megan, with us today. She'll be helping me out in the chat. So be specific. If you put something in the chat, I may not be able to respond immediately flying solo today. Tammi is out labbing the new bold rewrite that's launching in August, and she's labbing it in her home market center in North Carolina today. So exciting news on the bold front as well. So let's go to work. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started here. Let me start off with the right slide. And as we jump into this and we get into these 3 steps to building $1 million database, let's start off with some fundamentals. And if you've ever been on one of these webinars with Tammi and I, we come back essentially every time to starting the conversation off right here with something called the trust triangle. And the trust triangle is something, actually, it came from the Harvard Business Review, and it was based upon a study of how did leaders develop trust in the people that they led. And they came to this conclusion that there were 3 key elements to developing that trust. And the first one was logic. And the logic part was the people that they led knew that the leader could do it. They knew that the leader knew their stuff. Their reasoning and judgment was sound. They trusted what they said because they were knowledgeable. They knew their craft. They knew this. They were experts in this area, whatever that area would be. And then on the empathy side, on the other point, it was empathy. they felt and they truly believed that the person, the leader, cared about them, cared about their well-being, cared about their success. And at the top of the triangle was this thing called authenticity. They felt like, man, this is really, I'm dealing with the real person. This person doesn't feel contrived. It's not putting on a front. I feel like I'm dealing with a real, genuine human being. They're authentic. They're experiencing the real you. And when we thought about this, and as I heard this, the first time I heard this was a conversation Gary Keller was having with Jay Papasan. And it was on a session at Mega Leadership. And it hit me that fast. I said, this is exactly how you and I develop trust with our database, with our sphere of influence, with our network, with those people that we choose to be influential with. And remember this, folks, Gary has told us for years that we have to show up, especially in a shift. We have to show up as the trusted advisor. We have to show up as that person who cuts through the confusion for them. I mean, let me ask you, do y'all believe the consumer is confused today? Are interest rates going up? Or are they coming down? Is my market going to crash? Is it going to go up? Is it a good time to buy? Is it not a good time to buy? And the consumer is confused and they need guidance. They need guidance more than they've ever needed guidance before. And this is where we have to show up in that space as the trusted advisor. So let's go to work on these 3 steps. And again, there's so many things in between this, and we'll talk about how you can hang out with Tammi and I through our program to find out more about just how do I really implement all this and become that person, and what are all those conversations. Well, in fact, we're going to give you a great conversation today that allow you to kind of really get that reconnect with your database, add value, come from contribution. And before we leave today, I'm going to make sure you leave with that conversation and some resources at the end of the call when we're done today. So let me go back to the slides. And as we dive in here, I want to talk about something called the 700 challenge. And the stated goal of never-ending referrals is for you to get a 10% return on your database and to grow it by 250 or more over the course of the next 12 months. And the first big benchmark towards building a $1 million database is getting to 700. And at a 12, average prices in so many of our markets have gone so bonkers high, median sales prices, that it only takes 83 transactions to have a $1 million GCI business with a $12,000 average commission. And based upon a 10% return database, ideally, I'm going to have to get to about 830, 850 in a database if my GCI was 12,000. And the first benchmark is 700. The first benchmark for you might be 100, it might be 200, might be 300. And we'd say, everybody get to at least 700. And I want to tell you about why 700. And Megan, if you'll just check where that noise is coming from and make sure we got a mute. But let me go through, and if we go back to the 700 challenge, I want to take you through a little math real quick, because the 700 challenge is a passion around something. First, if anybody out here, if you've been in the industry long enough, you know that we went through a time where people were talking about disintermediation, that tech aggregators were going to take control of all the clients, and everything's going to come through them. And that's not what's happened. In fact, people still prefer to do business by referral. They still choose to pick an agent, whether a buyer or a seller, that's referred to them or that they know, that they have a relationship with. And so the 700 challenge is, how do I get to more relationships? And how do I make the aggregators less relevant in our world? Because let me tell you, somebody that's been in the business over 30 years, there's going to come a day when that lead is not 35%. There's going to come a day when it's 45%. There's going to come a day when it's 50% if we capitulate the relationship to an app and to an aggregator, to whomever it is. And they're just business people. It's our fault if we give the business to somebody else and we have to pay more and more and more for it. That's on us. And so here's where the 700 challenge comes in. And I'm going to take you through a little math, and you'll feel me feeling a little passionate about this because, this is part of protecting our industry. And if we do the math, here's what the math is. There's 330 million, give or take, in the U.S. population. Oops, hang on. $330 million people in the U.S. population. Census data says the average household is 2.53 people per household. So that means there's 130 million households out there. So when we come over here in the red box, we know 130 million households, 65% of those are homeowner households, which means there's 84 million homeowner households. The 700 challenge is this. How do we take those 84 million households and with just 120,000 real estate agents, having 700 households average apiece, touch every one of those households, where every one of those households has a trusted advisor, somebody that's their authentic self person they have a relationship with, a connection with. Now, we don't want to ignore the other, 46 million people who don't own a home. We want to find a way to identify them as well and get them into our database because we know home ownership is one of the best ways for them to build wealth. And so one of the mission things that we're on is let's get more and more people to that database of 700. And that's that jumping off place to $1 million database. And it might take you 3 years to get there. It might take you 4 years to get there. And yet, who's going to be part of that solution? Who's going to be part of that 120,000 where we control our industry? We control our destiny because we have the relationship. And that's what we're all about here. That's about making sure that you have that ability, skills, tools, knowledge, and perspective to add that value. So let's jump on to the first of the 3 steps. The first one is, and I want to pause on this for a minute, and I want to say, I want you to write this down. The conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. And if people, we're going to look at how do we deliver on each of these points of the triangle. And when we go to the empathy side, the way they're going to experience the empathy is they have to have a relationship with you. And it's going to start with conversations. And it can be a combination of text conversations. It can be over the phone. It can be face-to-face. And yet we've got to do more one-on-one connections with people. And one of the things we talk about in session 2 of Never Ending Referrals is how do I do this in a way that's authentic? As I start talking about conversations, some of us start shutting down because we're going, I don't want to make phone calls. I don't want to talk to my database. And by the way, part of that is just we all have limiting beliefs, or I'm going to call them hangups around having these conversations. And I'll tell you about mine. Mine is, well, if you're familiar with a DISC, I'm a really high assertive behavioral style. I'm a high D, and I'm as high as it'll go. And as a high D, you can imagine one of the things I prefer not to have is a lot of chit chat, small talk. That's not natural for me. And very early on, my mentor mentioned to me, she said, hey, Steve, if you want to have a lot of success in this business, just be friends with all your clients. And I said, and of course, I'm going, I got 4 friends. I don't need any more friends. I need buyers and sellers. And if you're like me and you're a high assertive, the idea of being everybody's friend was overwhelming. And so in the early part of my career, I gravitated to expireds and for sale by owners. But thank God I really built a database, and I marketed to it. I just really didn't communicate with it until later. And I learned later that I could be their trusted advisor. And I heard this just almost as an off the cuff remark from a great trainer years ago named Howard Brinton, who was in Round Rock, Texas at a board of realtors doing a thing. And he talked about one of his students who positioned herself as the trusted advisor. And he explained what that was. And I said, I can do that. I can be that. I can't be everybody's best friend, and yet I can be that. And so every behavioral style has an approach or a way or a strategy that will work for you. For those of us that had held back having, connections that way, because whatever fears of concern or rejection, one of the things we teach in Never Ending Referrals is how do you set up your world of connection and conversation so that they're rejection free. You never face rejection because you're always giving more than you're taking. You're always giving more than you're receiving. And that never sets you up for rejection. So let's go into this conversation bit a bit. So what's the first step to making sure that we can build a robust database that gives us the return that we desire? And the first thing is something that we created in Never Ending Referrals. And if you've taken Bold, you've probably experienced this too. As we loaned it to Bold, it's doing something called doing the database 2. And doing the database 2 is this. It's a commitment every week to say, who are the 2 letters in my database that are going to I'm going to have a conversation with this week. And it goes by the first letter of their last name. So S&U week is everybody whose last name begins with S or last name begins with U gets a phone call. H and V week and an R week. And by the way, the combinations were set up strategically where we balance some of the population mix to have kind of semi-equal groups, except for there's a strategy that you'll learn later about why the last 2 letters of the 13-week cycle are smaller groups, because it gives you a regroup time. But we took of course, there's 26 letters of the alphabet. We took the 26 letters and put them into 2-letter groups to create 13 2-letter groups around a program we call DTD2, or Doing the Database 2. And so you break down even a database of 700, it's less than 70 contacts a week that I got to connect with, and I can build a real relationship, with a database of about 700. When it gets much bigger than that, it gets tougher. And we have strategies for, what do you do when you have a 2,000, 3,000, or even 1,000 person database? And how do you make that work and stay in relationship with them? And there's different strategies for that. And yet you're always in relationship with your core. And so doing the database 2, in fact, this week is A&W week. And so everybody whose first name begins with, it's beginning of a new quarter. First week of the quarter is A&W. And thousands of agents all over the country who've adopted DTD2 are calling the Andersons and the Wilkinsons, and they're having these conversations this week. They're having value-added conversations. And let me tell you, there's a couple of real strategies around DTD2 that make it work. And so let me give you one of the best strategies. And that is, first, it's a commitment as you're going through DTD2 to stay out of call bias. I'm not, when I get to Anderson, and I'm not going to go, I don't know if she wants to talk to me. I don't know if she'd have anything for me. I don't want to bother her. And you skip her. We make some judgments about who maybe should have a conversation with us. Trust that's probably true for you. And we're judging machines. I mean, if we're avoidance machines, we find convenient ways to avoid doing the uncomfortable work. And yet we say, just do a cycle or 2 of DTD2 with staying out of call bias and see what happens. And I can't tell you as a Bold coach, how often in the Bold room, we have somebody come up and say, I was doing my DTD2 this week, and I called somebody, if I wasn't committed to this, that I ordinarily wouldn't have called. And X happened. I had one example in Georgia where a lady was calling her I's and Q's, and she had a $1 million listing and a 1.3 million buy side come out of one conversation of somebody she said she wouldn't have called. But let me give you the big one. And let's just say this week being A&W, let's say I've got 50 people in my A&W group. And we're going to talk about what we call the 3 attempt approach. And I commit on Monday to start it off. And on Monday, I dial my 50 and I connect with 15. That's probably a reasonable ratio. And so that means I connected with 30% of that DTD2 group. Now, what most people do is they make one attempt every 6 months, if ever, and then I did it. And they would have wound up talking to 15 or 30% of that group. And yet you're not going to do that if you practice DTD2 with the 3 attempt approach. The next step you're going to take is on Wednesday, I'm going to take the remaining 35 I did not connect with, and I'm going to dial them up. And let's say I connect with another 15 more. Well, now I went from connecting with 30% of that group to 60% of that group. And I'm not done. On Thursday, I've got a remaining 20 that I've not connected with. And I'm going to dial into the remaining 20. And let's say I talk to 10 of those. I've now talked to 40 of 50. I've talked to 80% of my DTD2, of my A&W DTD2 group. Now, by the way, I just massively improved my odds of getting a referral, deepening a relationship, identifying somebody with a need that we can be an advisor for, helping them with maybe they need a resource, and really deepening that relationship, showing up as that person that's their go-to person. And you're going, okay, Steve, well, doing this, how do I do it? Well, on the first call, we'll give you the conversations. We'll give you one today. But on the first call, if you get a voicemail, leave a voicemail. Now, here's a pro tip. I want you to write this down. When leaving a voicemail, always make it okay for them not to call you back. What? Hear me. When leaving a voicemail, always make it okay for them not to call you back. Now, the reason we do that is, how many times has somebody called you, asked you to return a call, and you got busy? And then you remembered at the most inopportune time that you hadn't called them back. And it wasn't an opportune time and you couldn't at the time. And then you forget again. And then again, remember, maybe not. And all of a sudden you feel a little guilty that you have been neglecting that sense of, obligation, if you will. The one thing we never want people in our database to have is a sense of guilt or obligation. And we're here to serve them. So, the voicemail might be, hey, it's Steve over at Keller Williams. Hey, I trust you're doing great. I wanted to check in with you guys and had a quick business question for you. Hey, I know everybody's busy right now, crazy time of the summer. No worries. I'll reach out to you later in the week. Hopefully we'll connect then. And of course, the number here. Feel free to call if you have the opportunity. And I'm going to leave it at that. And now when I call back on Wednesday, I'm just doing what I said I would do. And then not going to leave a voicemail on Wednesday if I don't get them. And I'm going to make that one last attempt on Thursday, probably at a different time slot, maybe in the early evening, late afternoon. And those 10 that maybe I didn't connect with, I send them a personal note or a text, say, hey, no worries to call me. No need to call me back. You probably saw I've been reaching out to you. Just wanted to check in on you guys. Always here to serve you. And leave it at that. And then move on to the next DTD2 group. Now, one last thing about DTD2. And there's so many things we're going to talk about. In area referrals, we talk about how you set your social media up to work with this through custom lists and so on. And yet one last thing on DTD2, and that is this. And it's a discipline. And yet we fall off of discipline sometimes. Sometimes something happens in our life and we get derailed. And one of the other beauties of doing DTD2 is that if I miss next week, which is B&E, because there's a family situation and it's not going to happen. The next week is D&O, and I'm just going to pick up where it left off, and it's D&O week. I'm just going to get back in the current week. And if I can catch up, I'll catch up. And yet sometimes fighting to catch up, it feels like a defeating proposition. It's too much. I can't catch up. Just begin again with the current week, because when it's a cycle that comes around every 13 weeks. And, if you missed a week and you're on the next week, well, you just got 12 more weeks till that one you missed comes around again. So this becomes this elegant little system that keeps you on a track, that puts you in that position on the trust triangle of them getting to experience that empathy. And depending on the conversation, they're also getting to experience your authenticity, and they're probably getting some of the logic as well, but they're getting this real connection. So that's the first element. You've got to commit to having the conversations. It's the conversations, the relationship. But let's go to the next element here. And so as we dive into the second step of creating $1 million database, in never-ending referrals, we advocate a 52 touch. Now, I want you to imagine this for a second. The MREA book was 33 touch. We updated it to 36 touch. And you get touched a lot by Amazon and these subscription services, and you're not deleting them. You're not unsubscribing to them because you have a relationship with them. And as you build this relationship with a database, we're going, how do you stay really in this space of mind share at the highest level? And it's 52 touches. And again, you don't have to start there, but this might be the end game. So you imagine 52 touches. That means every week there's a little tap right there where you're showing up in their inbox, in their mailbox, in a text message, or they're getting that quarterly D2 call from you. And so what that might look like is 2 monthly direct mail pieces. So it could be market stats, it could be community interest. Here's a sample of one of our newsletters from some of our agents in one of my market centers. They got a 4-page newsletter. The back has got all the stats of all our various metro areas and trends. 2 monthly emails. And by the way, when you join us in Never Ending Referrals, we're going to give you access to a couple of emails a month that you can, R&D that we put together for our agents in our market centers that are sending out, and you can customize them for your market. We'll actually provide you with smart plans and the actual text in case you're using some other database or some other way to send it out if you're not sending it out through command. And then 2 monthly emails, economic update, evidence of success, a great thing to have in these emails. Today, the consumer is confused, and somebody has to get through that confusion and bring them certainty. And your email campaigns that focus on this can be a big part of the logic side of you filling in that space. And then, of course, your D2 quarterly calls. So if we think about 2 a month on direct mail, that's 24. 2 a month on email, that's 24. There's 48 touches. You add your D2, it's 52. And part of making the direct mail work is I'd get a local print mail vendor, create some templates, and work off some templates. But let's go to the next piece. Many of us have to grow a database, and maybe it's you're just getting started with this. And I want to go down to this space. You got this guy here. I'm going to take him down for a second and just talk to you. Here's one of the things I want you to think about for a second. And Megan, I don't know, we'll come back and answer questions at the end here. So if you'll just kind of be looking if there's any question patterns there, and we'll come back to some of those. So hang around, I'll get to your questions for sure. But let's go back to one of the biggest opportunities that is so undervalued by real estate agents that will help you grow a database and likely grow it by 100 or 200, potentially pretty quickly if you were very intentional about it, as we can share with you just how to do it. And I'm going to give you one way to do that today. and it's business to business. And, you go back to this guy I had, on the screen here for a second, and, he's scratching his head and, who am I going to use for a gardener? Who am I going to use for a lawyer, plumber, dentist, mechanic, daycare? And this person is your client that just moved into whatever city you live in from halfway across the country and has Zippo relationships right now. They've moved into a new market and they have no resources. In fact, it's a freak out moment for them when they realize they don't know who to go to for anything. And who are they going to rely on? And ideally, Gary Keller said this at family reunion years ago. He said, "Why does Angie's List even exist?" He said, "Your people shouldn't be going to Angie's List. They should be going to you. You should be curating a list of trusted people that when somebody has a need, they come to you." And it's easy for you to position, you're going, man, I didn't get in this business to be a concierge. But here's the cool thing. If the consumer is only moving every 10 years, and you condition them to come to you for needs, for resources, that's a really powerful way to nurture that relationship between transactions. To nurture that relationship in a way that makes you a resource that's always top of mind so that you generate referrals. And so it's a powerful strategy that if I'll build a business to business database that, and by the way, here's the other part of this. As real estate agents, we undervalue many times our position in the community. Because if I go out to a business person and I used to have the right conversation, through the right conversation, I can help that business person discover that I'm really a great person to know, because I'm often the first, second, or third point of contact for people moving new to the area who haven't gotten here yet, who don't have that relationship with the auto mechanic, who don't have the relationship with the CPA locally, who don't have the relationship with, who's going to do my hair or who's going to do my nails. And I can be a bridge for them to grow their business. And when we think about that, you are a very special person in the world. You have a very unique position, and that's something you can build value around. So let's go talk about one of the conversations. So if I'm going to build a business to business database, one of the things I've got to do is, I've got to identify who those people are. And one of the best ways to identify those people, and I'm going to give you the script when we're done here at the end, is something we in Networking Referrals have that we call the 5-star script. Or the five, we're not supposed to call them scripts anymore. Let's call them conversations. So it's the 5-star conversation. And here's how this conversation goes. Megan, are you out there?
I'm out here.
Okay. I'm going to, since Tammy's off labbing bold today, I'm going to role play this with you. Is that okay?
I'm good with that.
All right. So I'm making a call to Megan, and I'm not going to spotlight her because it's a phone call. We shouldn't be seeing her anyway. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Megan, Steve Schlueter. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey, fantastic. Hey, I trust you're doing well. I've kind of had you on my mind. I've got a little business question for you, and I'm working on a little project thought you could help me with. And before I get into that, I happened to see on Facebook that you and your son and his grandfather were at, I think it was his grandfather, were at the monster truck thing over the weekend. How was that?
We were. It was so much fun. It was hot, and we had a shelter in place through a storm. But we finally got to see all the monster trucks, and it was a great time.
Great time. Oh gosh. How old is that son of yours now?
He's 4.
4 years old. Fantastic. He's a big 4-year-old from what I saw in the pictures.
He's the size of a 6-year-old, probably.
Oh my gosh. Oh, he's got the genes, I guess. So, well, hey, Megan, let me tell you why I called. And we're working on a little project for our clients. And and of course for our friends as well. And as you can imagine, Megan, and I know you guys have moved a couple of times, and we've got clients moving to the area all the time, Megan, that are in need of services that they left behind from wherever they moved from, and they come here with a blank slate, not knowing anybody. And we're building a directory of great service providers for our friends and for our clients. And we're really curating through the people we know, and we want the best of the best. And let me ask you a question. Has there been just anybody that has provided a service or to y'all in the last, I don't know, maybe month or so that's just really blown you away, maybe a 5-star-ish experience, anything like that?
We have actually recently had our AC tune-up done.
Oh, okay.
And there's a company here locally that we found when we moved, because we had an AC issue. They came out and fixed it. I accidentally hit a wire with the weed eater, so they came out promptly and fixed that for us. And ever since then, we've gotten on their program, and they provide. We pay a small monthly fee, and twice a year they come out and do AC and a heating tune-up.
Wow.
And then they also do a plumbing check and electrical check every year as part of the program.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. What's the name of the company?
It's Hiller, Hiller.
Okay, perfect. And who would be the best person for me to connect with over there?
Oh,
Just say John. Just say John. Just say John.
Okay, John.
Okay. John, and then say, hey, well, I tell you what, Megan, when I reach out to John, and by the way, do you have their number by chance? And then I'd get the number, and I'd say, so Megan, when I reach out to John over at Hiller, would it be okay if I use your name that you mentioned, that the experience you had? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, of course, sidebar, that's going to make this a really warm introduction when I reach out to John over at, Hiller AC. I said, well, Megan, thanks for helping me with that. It sounds like somebody we absolutely need to have in our directory, and sounds like a great program too. Maybe there's another introduction you can help me with. One of the things that we were getting a lot of requests for, back in March and April, Megan, was CPAs, and mine retired a couple of years ago. And quite honestly, I haven't found the right one myself personally yet. Do you happen to have a great introduction in that space you could help us with?
I don't.
No? Okay. Well, I know, Megan, that as I, reach through our network, as vast as our network is, I'll come across a great CPA. Let me ask you this. When I do, would that be something that you'd like me to connect you with?
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect. I'll make a note of that. And as soon as I, identify a really great person, I'll kind of get you guys connected, and you can kind of explore, if it's a good match for you. So I'll make that happen. All right. Well, hey, Megan, really thanks for your help with that. And as soon as we get this done, I'll, let you know, how to access that resource. Before I let you go, though, it's really a wackadoo crazy real estate market out there. And, there's a lot of confusion about, what to do and what's on y'all's radar. Any real estate plans over the next 12 to 24 months for y'all?
Well, we are actually thinking about possibly moving to the Alabama or Florida coast probably next summer, after the school year ends.
Fantastic. Wow. Let me ask you that. What's taking you to Alabama or Florida?
My in-laws live in Florida, and then my mom is on the Alabama coast. So hopefully, moving closer to family so that our son is closer to grandparents.
Oh, man. So, in a perfect world, when would y'all do that?
School will end middle of May next year, and we'll want to be settled before the following fall, before he gets into kindergarten.
Okay, got it. Wow, it sounds like y'all are pretty set on doing this, huh?
We are.
All right. Well, here's what I would offer, and then that is, as we get closer to that, happy to sit down with y'all and have a strategy session, talk about the best timing and preparation. In fact, is clear as y'all are planning to do that, we could even do that sooner rather than later, in terms of really helping y'all prepare. Or would y'all be ready to do that already and have that meeting, or do you want to wait a little while?
I would say maybe wait until the fall.
Okay.
I anticipate probably trying to put the house on the market in the spring.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up with you, and we'll make it a point after school gets going again and all that to come together and get a little strategy session to see kind of what we're going, what's going on. Hey, well, thanks, Megan, for helping me with that. And before I let you go, any other big plans for the rest of the year?
Oh, we are going to be heading down to Florida on Saturday, get a little beach time.
All right, how fun that is. So that little blonde-headed surfer boy you've got there, he looks like he belongs on a beach. So I could appreciate that.
Oh yeah, and he loves the ocean.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Megan, thanks so much. And I'm going to be back in touch with you with that CPA connection as soon as we get it. And thank you again for John and Hiller AC. I'll get in touch with them right away. So is there anything else I can do for you while I got you?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
All right. So let me pause here for a minute. What did you guys hear? Somebody chime in. And what did you hear in this conversation? Feel free to unmute yourself and come into the
conversation where you acknowledged her family, where you acknowledged her son, their event, where you offered, where you asked about a service that they may have gotten and asked to be connected with that person, or information for you to connect with the company that provided them the 5-star service. Then you when I'm in awe, sir. I know I'm blanked out, but I'm in awe of this conversation because even my brother, who was in earshot of it, heard it, and he was in awe. But then you said about your retired accountant and asked if they had a person there that they could refer you to, and they said no. She said no, but then you said, hey, well, I'm going to ask about that as well. And when I come across that, can I contact you and share that information with you? So you gave a compliment. You showed that I pay attention to you, your life, and your family. You gave them an opportunity to share their 5-star experience with you. Now you're letting them know that I do business with other businesses that do a great job. Yeah. And hey, by the way, I'm not just calling you to get something from you. I want to give something to you at the same time. Then you segued into, what are your plans? You know, how is it going to go for you in the next 12 or so months? Then you pulled out how you allow her to say, you know what, we were already planning to move to Alabama, get closer to family. And in genuine, like you said earlier, in genuine form, you would like, you know what, let's sit down and strategize sooner than later. I mean, when I heard you say sooner, that was letting them know, you know what, we want to make sure we take advantage of this 12-month period. So y'all will be ready to rock and roll, sir.
You got it. Julie, was that Julie?
To be my math coach. If you're not too expensive, I might consider you being my math coach.
Well, I'm very inexpensive through our group program. You're going to find out about in just a few minutes. So thank you. That was Julie, right? Thank you, Julie. By the way, here's a couple of things I want you to take away from that. And Julie articulated it really well. There's so much value add in that. And I framed the conversation in a personal conversation. We go through all the strategy in that. And so it really was conversational. You notice I did say I had a business reason for calling at the beginning, because you never want to feel the transition from the personal to the business to feel wonky. And so if I say that I've got a business component to the call, and then I start off yet with something personal, and then it makes the shift to the business part really easy. And when I got her to talk about what plans might y'all have over the next 12 to 24 months, I framed it in a way that was, hey, it's a really wackadoo real estate market out there, and a lot of confusion about maybe, what the best things are to do. Have y'all been pondering, or you've been considering any real estate moves in the next 12 to 24 months? So I could advise you on maybe some of the opportunities. However you choose to say that. And it's not, I didn't ask you want to buy or sell, or, it's a good time. It's just, do you have anything that's pressing that might create a move? Now, I want to go back to another thing. So now I got a warm lead with Hiller Air Conditioning. And now I'm going to reach out to Hiller, and I'm going to build that relationship. I'm going to probably do a quick pop by. I'm going to arrange a pop by. I've got a conversation model that we teach that I'm going to use to build a relationship with Hiller in 10 minutes. I'm also going to get, or John, and I'm also going to get all John's contact information. So now he's going into my database, and now I've got a business to business relationship that's been set up with another client. And then now the CPA thing, as I'm going through my DTD2, it won't take long for me to find a great CPA. And yet I'm not going to stop asking about CPAs, because I'm also looking for people that have a need for a CPA. So I might go through 7 weeks of the CPA being the placeholder for the other introduction that I'm looking for before I put something else in there. And I might have 10 people that desire a great CPA. And then I've got, this opportunity where I've maybe identified 3 CPAs because I kept asking. And now when I reach out to the CPAs, I might have 5 warm opportunities for each of those CPAs. And what does that do for that relationship when I go into connect with that person and say, and by the way, here's some of my folks that said they really wanted a great introduction. Can I connect you guys via email, or maybe even better yet, via text? And that way I'm getting personal contact information from these CPAs. And of course, I'm getting them entered in my database, all their personal information. And we give you all the strategy to do that real easily. And this conversation, the directory conversation, the 5-star script is something that you can do. You could even do a couple of times a year. You could say we're updating it. In fact, I'll give you a sample of what one of my agents, what her directory looks like. In fact, Megan, put the link to this in case they can't QR code this right now because they're maybe on their phone. Yet Amy Gerard, one of my great agents in one of my market centers, this is what her directory looks like. And, it's in a Google document form. It's easy to edit and add to and keep current. It's always current. And so, Megan, if you'll put that in the chat, and there you go, you've got that vendor list, she calls it. And this is a great way to be a resource. It's a really cool strategy, and you can easily add at least 100 relationships through the business to business world by making this really work for you. All right, so let's wrap up on a couple of things here today. So that you heard the 5-star script. We're going to drop that in the chat in a few moments. But this is one of the things I want to talk to you about, our Never Ending Referrals program, and how you guys can hang out with Tammi Juengst and I and learn all these gambits and these tips and these tricks and the system to make sure you get a 10% return on a database, and that you can grow it in a way very organically that is building a relationship-based business, even if you're not a social person. Seth and Alice Daly are somebody who've been great contributors to Never Ending Referrals. They were in the Baltimore, Maryland area. They've moved to Austin, still have a business in Baltimore. And, in some of the conversations with Seth, he's like, why would you live one more day cold calling and praying for buyers and sellers? How about unlocking a business that you're excited about, and one where buyers and sellers call you? You're getting out of the chasing business and you're getting into the attracting business. And I will tell you, as somebody who chased for the first 4 years of my career, chasing is tiring. And it's not always predictable, because I started off chasing expireds. And by the way, we've got a special gift for you today as well in a few moments, in addition to the script. Chasing is tiring. And it's not always predictable, because when the market shifted for me and there were very few expireds, which some of you may have experienced in the past several years, I had to reinvent my business. And thank God I had kept, a database, but I had to start really beginning to nurture it. So in our program, Never Ending Referrals, this is, I don't know if you've got this available to put in the chat, Megan, the outline of Never Ending Referrals. Essentially, we've got 8 foundational lessons that we take you through to build a relationship-based business. Even if your database is a train wreck today, by the time you get through these 8 weeks, you'll have a system built that can really create the return that you desire to have and start the beginnings of building, a robust business. Now, if you're already doing well with this, how do you get it to the highest return possible and a 10% or better? Now, let me tell you about Never Ending Referrals. We're a group program through MAPS. We're an ongoing membership program. It's $39 a month. The contract is a minimum 5 months, so you're going to stay with us at least 5 months. It includes an interview component where we're interviewing top agents like the dailies. We've got a tech component every month where we have an interview with KT Temple, who's our tech guru, on everything tech around the database and how do I use technology to be effective. We meet on Mondays, 3 Mondays a month. It's typically the first 3 Mondays of the month, unless we have a holiday. So our first Monday of this month, because of the July 4th holiday, is July 10th, I guess it is, which is this coming Monday. And Megan, if you'll put the link in there, I see the registration link is in there. Now, all of our sessions of Never Ending Referrals are recorded. Let me share with you one other thing here. You can also check us out at neverendingreferrals.com. But if you'll go straight to the registration link here, I do have one other gift for you, and I've got the script for you in just a moment. But there is one other thing I want to share with you, and that is our portal. Let me see if I can get there. Here it is. The Never Ending Referrals portal is where we've got archived years of interviews that we've done with top agents. We've got the latest live session recordings, and we have a whole on-demand section where it's broken into short videos of 4 to 7 minutes each, where each of the 8 lessons is broken into maybe a series of 10 or 12 videos where you can take it a little chunk at a time. Or maybe you want to go straight to the client event section and learn about client events because you're planning to hold one. Well, you can scroll through and go to that. We've got some things in here on prospect. We have a whole FSBO section that we have broken down, because our mantra in Never Ending Referrals is that there's 2 things that you should master: your database and at least 1 to 2 other tactics that are listing specific that you can do in high volume. And that's what Gary Keller taught me. And so those 2 things, and you build a robust business. And so lastly, let me share Megan, if you'll go ahead and put the conversation, the 5-star conversation in there. And then I'm going to tell them about the last gift I've got for them. And if you'll put, we do have that set up on Amazon, right? Yeah. And I'd like to offer you a digital copy, electronic copy of my book, Rescue Dogs in Real Estate, just as a gift to you for being here with us today. This will take you to Amazon, where today only you can download the ebook for free. If you're I like a paper book, it's $7.99. You can go there. The one thing I would ask is do read it. It breaks down some of the conversation we talked about today in the form of a parable or a story, where it goes through a struggling agent and how the agent turns it around, implementing the things that we teach you in our program, Never Ending Referrals. And if you love the book, go there and give it a 5-star review. I would sure appreciate that, and give it a comment. We'd love to get a little energy around that, and your help is certainly appreciated. So Megan, let's go to some of the questions that folks have. And again, I'm going to back up here. Again, we kick off with session 1 again on Monday. And so if you get registered today, you'll be able to join us Monday, and we'll go right to work on the fundamentals of the lessons of Never Ending Referrals with you. So Megan, what do we have in terms of questions here?
Ellen asked, what CRM can she use? Command was not working for her because she has to use MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody did comment that you can use MailChimp with Command. So I'm not sure if there's still.
Yeah, let me just address that in a broad scope, a broad brush, and that is our program is CRM agnostic, if you will. Everything that we teach, the tech teachings we have are based around command. And yet everything that we teach can be applied to any other database. Some of the email marketing stuff we'll give you, well, it's out there in a smart plan, and yet we'll also give you access to the email copy that you can put into MailChimp or anything else that you might desire to use, depending on what you're doing. So the program's not dependent on any one CRM. So thank you for asking. Yeah.
Mindy asked, what if you have too many to get through on a Monday? So she was talking about that when you were discussing the 3-attempt approach.
Mm-hmm. Well, it might be, the first attempt might be a Monday, Tuesday in that case, and so I'm going to get through what I can get through Monday, Tuesday, and then, that'll thin it down some. And then here's the other thing, the tactics we get into when you have a really large database is, how do I bring in what we would call an account rep, where I go, okay, how many can I manage? If I can manage 600 and my A&W group is 45 and I can manage that, or it's 50 or whatever it is, much beyond that, I have, with my schedule and all this, I have difficulty managing, then I'm going to bring in an assistant, who acts as an account rep, and they take care of the rest of my group. And so they do business in my name. And so when they're calling DTD2 that week, it's going, hey, this is Mary, over at Steve Schlueter's office. Hey, Steve asked me to give you a call. He wanted to, let you know about, a couple of things. He's working on a little project, thought you could help with. And in fact, he was telling me he saw, and they're out there doing business in your name. They use your name. They don't say, hey, it's Mary at Steve Schlueter's office. Hey, wanted to check in on you. It's Steve asked me to call. And so they become an extension of you. And we get into all those strategies when it comes to more robust big database and what do you have to do. What do you got next, Megan?
Ariel asked, what happens when you haven't spoken to a client in years? I feel like calling them out of the blue makes it clear that I want repeat business. The conversation seems awkward.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing that you do. You have a connect call and you don't talk about business. The reconnect call is one where I just reach out, and if I'm calling Megan, I go, hey, Megan, Steve Schlueter over at Keller Williams, your long lost real estate agent or long lost friend, or, it may just be a sphere of influence person. Hey, I've had you on my I've had you on my mind and had been meaning to call you for a while. And today I just said, I got to pick up the phone. It's been so long. What's going on in your world? You still working at blank? And I would just start into what we call a forward conversation and just do a reconnect. In fact, we go all through that in session 2 of Never Ending Referrals and how we really make those reconnects. And here's the truth. They're 99.2% of the time, they're excited to hear from you. Because see, we hallucinate in our head that they're over there going, dang it, if that Steve Schlueter ever calls me, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. I haven't heard from him. Let me give you a perspective check. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about you. They got life going on. They got a lot. They've got a full plate every day, and they're not thinking about you. And yet, when you reconnect, they start thinking about you. And you can just start with the relationship. And by the way, if somewhere in there you're going through there, you ask them about, hey, what's going on in your world of work? Are you still working at such and such? And they go, yeah. And they may ask you about work. And so it may create that a little organic conversation. And yet I wouldn't get sucked into that and just say, hey, and by the way, I'm always here if you have a real estate question or something. And then just keep the conversation going. And I would wrap up the call with this. I'd say, hey, it was so great to reconnect with you. And of course, as a real estate agent, I've been a little remiss in kind of keeping, you and some folks informed. It's a really crazy real estate market. Would it be okay if I stayed in touch, kind of kept you informed of what's going on out there? Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate that. And don't ask for referral. Don't ask for business. And yet listen for signs that they might have something coming up. Hey, we just graduated our last one. Wow. What does that mean for you guys? What's empty nester life feel like? look like? And just see where it goes, right? All right, great question. Thank you for asking. All right, let's take one more, Megan, and we're gonna wrap it up.
I just see that some people asked about the vendor list design or a copy of the directory. That is all linked in the chat, but when we send out a replay of this, either end of the day today or tomorrow, I will add those in the email. You'll have direct links to that.
So look for the replay. We'll make sure we follow up with all that. If you were driving, doing all this or something, or just didn't have the ability to do that, we'll make sure you get it. So, all right. So whoops, I went blank screen here. Hang on. I'm getting weird warning signs on my screen. Let me stop the share here. All right, folks. Hey, thank you so much for being with us today. I trust you got some value. I would love to see you on, with us beginning Monday. If you'll just again go to mapscoaching.com, find Never Ending Referrals, and join us on that journey. Or go to neverendingreferrals.com, go to the Join Now, and we trust we'll have the opportunity to be with you soon. Take care. See you, folks.